So you want to fly a plane? Well, let's break it down into steps. First step, from the starting area where you log in on, you're going to press M and you're going to head to one of these state of the war tents. There are 4 of them in the starting area and they tend to be mirrored in the starting square that you spawn on. We're going to walk over to one of them and we're going to press E to open it. While in the map, we're going to shift click twice this component field icon. Now that we have done that, we are going to left click component mine, aircraft depot, aircraft hangar, both aircraft runways, the refinery, the seaport, and the storage depot. Now that we've done this, we're going to want to figure out where we're going to spawn. Usually you spawn in your backline hexes. In this case, being on colonial, it would be these hexes down here. If I was on Warden, it would be these hexes up here. Or if the war is going east to west or west to east, then I would spawn in the backline hexes of wherever it is that my faction has taken the most control. If you are in a clan, you're going to want to speak to your clan members to figure out where they do the majority of their logistics at. Alright, I'm going to zoom in here, and the goal is to find a hex that has either a seaport, an aircraft depot, or a storage depot, as well as a refinery, which is quite important, and surrounded by enough of these farming node locations, either component fields or component mines, in order for us to make use of. In this case, it will be ash fields, and my goal is going to be to spawn in this hex nearby either of these storage facilities. In this case, likely the seaport is where the majority of the logistics occurs. In order to spawn in, what you're going to do is you're going to press escape, and you're going to press M again, and we're going to go to one of these deploy sections in your starting area. Once we have found our deployment area, we are going to press E to open the map, and we will deploy in the area of our choosing. In our starting area, our goal is to find an R1 hauler. The best way to do this is that you can either just take a look around inside of the starting area to see if there is any R1 haulers available. As you can see in this case in Ashtown, there are a bunch of them over here. These are the standard Logi trucks for Foxhole. However, the other option is to go to one of the seaports and pull one out. Seaport or storage depot or aircraft depot, press E in order to open it, and we're going to click on the little vehicle icon here, and then from in here we are going to look for an R1 hauler, which is this truck right here. We are going to click to assemble it. Once the vehicle is done assembling, we will see that it appears here on the pad. We will press Q to enter the vehicle, and we will drive it off of the pad and off to the side, preferably next to any of these fuel containers that hopefully people have left around for us to use. Once we have parked next to a fuel container, what we will do is press E on the vehicle, and as you can see, this vehicle is currently taking diesel. This can be changed. If you click the change fuel option, it will then take petrol, but for now it is diesel. I will click this refuel button, and hopefully one of these is full of diesel, and it will refuel the vehicle for us. Now that the vehicle is fully fueled, we will hop inside of the vehicle, and our next goal is to figure out where it is that we want to go to collect some components for our plane. So, we can take a look at and see that this component field has 162 nodes available to it. However, we can also use these component mines here, so that way we don't actually have to farm them by hand. This component mine has 1,500 components, which is just enough to be able to fit inside of our vehicle, so we are going to head here first in order to collect some easy components without having to farm them ourselves. Now that I have arrived at the mine, I'm going to drive up to it, and I'm going to press E in order to access it. If you're having trouble with this, you can always press Shift E in order to open up a menu for the things to select. In this case, you're going to want to select the component mine. As you can see, there are 1.7k components in here, and what you will do is shift click these components into the back of our hauler, and we will do this until our hauler is full. Now that we have a full hauler of components here, I would recommend you press escape and to press L in order to lock the vehicle, and our next goal will be to go to a refinery. The way to get there is by pressing M, and we are going to look for this hammer icon inside of the hex, and we are going to drive our R1 hauler full of components to this refinery. Now that I've arrived at the refinery here, I will drive up to it. I will press E to open its inventory, and I will shift click all of our components from our R1 hauler into the refinery as such. And now you'll see that it will take 50 minutes in order for it to turn these 1,500 components into refined materials. You will get 75 refined materials based on this ratio from this truck, which is only 5 refined materials short of being able to make a plane. So, with that being said, our next goal is going to be to go get some more, and this time I'll show you how to get it from a component field. However, you are able to keep going back to a component mine if you wish to do so. So to begin getting components from a component field, what you will need to do is press M to open your map. I would recommend that you select bunker bases of all tiers in order to show them on the map here. And our goal is going to be to find a bunker base with a sledgehammer. So what I will do is I will hover over the nearest bunker base here, and I am looking for a sledgehammer. In this case, there is one on the 3rd column and 4th row. I see they have 37 sledgehammers in stock at this bunker base, so I'm going to drive over there. Now that I've arrived at the bunker base that I know has sledgehammers, I am going to hop out of my vehicle. I'm going to go up to the bunker base, and I'm going to press E to access its inventory. I am going to look around here for the sledgehammer. As you can see, it is here. It is also under the Tools tab here, and there is 37 sledgehammers. I am going to click this and assemble it into my inventory. Sledgehammer in my inventory, I am going to escape. I'm going to press tab to open up my inventory, and I'm going to click it into my primary slot, where I am now able to equip it with one. The next goal is going to be to go to a component field, so I'm going to press M, locate a component field that has components in it. In this case, this one has 162, this one up here has 95, and this one over here has 0. So I'm going to go to this component field up here. Now that I've arrived at the component field that has 162 nodes, I'm going to exit my vehicle, and now what I can do is I can equip my sledgehammer and hit a node. This will gather components. As you break the components, or the component pile, it'll actually give you a little boost there, so you won't only be getting 2 at a time every single time that you hit a component node. As you can see there, I got 12, and they go into my inventory. When my inventory is full, I can come over to the back of my car, and I can place the components inside of my R1 hauler. If you are lucky, and you have a component field that has one of these vehicles in it, you can come up to the vehicle, you can press Q to get in it, and this vehicle actually harvests these for you. So all you have to do is hold down left click, and as you can see, it gets 4 components at a much faster rate than swinging a sledgehammer. So you can do this until the vehicle is full, or in this case, I will hop out. I will access the components in the back of the vehicle. As you can see, we have 110. In this case, I'm just going to take the 10, but you would take as many as you can get in your inventory, and we will go over to our truck, or our R1 hauler, and we will submit these components to the back of the R1 hauler. We do this until the R1 hauler is full of components. Now that I have my full R1 hauler full of components, I will drive back to the refinery. Now that I'm back at the refinery, it is the same process as before. I'm going to press E to open the inventory and shift click the components in order to turn them into refined materials. At this point, I will have put enough in with 2 carloads to make about 1.9 planes. It is optional. I could pull these refined materials out by clicking here and having them be inside of my R1 hauler. It will take up 1 stack of 100 here, and then 73 into a second stack. However, I'm going to show you instead a way to take them so that way you can store them for later personal use, and also so that way you do not end up having leftover refined materials of which you cannot store, and you would have to submit them to public. To store these refined materials, what I would recommend is right-clicking the refined materials here, and you will click Retrieve All as crates. This will pull crates of 20 into your R1 hauler, as many as there possibly can be, and you will see that it says that they are reservable. Next step will be to exit out and to press M in order to find a seaport, or a storage depot, or a aircraft depot, either of which will work. In this case, I am going to use the seaport. Now that I have arrived at my storage depot of choice, in this case a seaport, I'm going to go up to it and press E to use the seaport. As you can see here, this is the public stockpile, which we do not necessarily want to use, because then we will not be able to be in control of pulling these materials out. Instead, what we will do is we will hit the Create Reserve Stockpile here. I will give it a name. It doesn't really matter what it is. In this case, I'll call it my name and then SP. I will click Submit, and then what this will do is it will create an empty reserve stockpile for me to use that will expire in 2 days if I do not add or remove anything from it. So now that I have created my reserve stockpile here, and it is empty on the right side, and it is clearly active, in other words, I have not opened up another one, I am in my personal reserve stockpile, I will right-click the crates, and I will click Submit All to Stockpile. And what this will do, as you can see, is it will put the crates inside of my reserve stockpile where only I can access it, or other people who you choose to give your passcode. I have my refined materials inside of my reserve stockpile. I can now take them out in a controlled manner. In this case, what you are going to want to do is take out exactly 4 crates of refined materials into your R1 hauler. This will unpack into 80, which we can do by right-clicking and clicking Unpack Materials. And you will see that you are not able to repack these. These are now technically unreservable. However, we are going to turn these into a plane, which is then reservable. In order to do so, we are going to press Escape, and we are going to go to the nearest aircraft hangar to assemble our plane. Now that I have arrived at an aircraft hangar, as you can see here, keep in mind that you are able to shift-click these buildings in order to have them appear as the only icons on your maps. Now that I've arrived here, I'm going to hop out of my vehicle, go to the back, and put the 80 refined materials in my inventory. I am also going to equip my hammer and walk into the aircraft hangar. From inside of the aircraft hangar, you are able to press E to use it, and from here you can assemble a scout plane, in this case, a Daedalus. When you click it, a plane will appear in front of you. You can equip your hammer with 1, walk up to it, and begin assembling your plane. Now that my plane is almost assembled, what I will do is, when it appears, I'm going to press L to lock it, and we need to empty our inventory in order to access the plane. So we will go back to our car, we will empty our inventory, as well as the items inside of our equipped slot. So press Tab to open your equipped slots, and be sure to empty those into your car as well, which should still be locked. And then we will go up to our plane, and the next task is going to be to taxi it over to the aircraft hangar. Now, this is not a flying lesson, but in order to complete this, we are going to have to move the plane over. So the way that we do this is, remember that spacebar is your brake, and scrolling up is how you move forward, and you use A and D in order to steer. So what we will do is we will scroll up until the thrust down here on the bottom left is about 20%, and we will begin to move. We can control the direction by pressing D or A in order to steer, and again, if anything goes wrong, we can always press space in order to stop. If you perhaps get yourself in a situation where you do need to back up, what you can do is you can hold down spacebar, come to a stop, and then scroll down. This will give you a negative thrust, which will back you up. In order to stop backing up, you need to scroll up until your thrust is again 0%. Then you can let go of spacebar, scroll up to 20%, and move forward again. In this case, again, we were going to the aircraft hangar. Once I get close, I'm going to start pressing spacebar to stop. I am going to turn my thrust down to 0%. I'm going to press E to open the aircraft depot at a complete stop with 0 thrust. Inside of the aircraft depot, as with the seaport or the storage depot, you can see that this is the public reserve stockpile. We do not want to submit to this. We want to reserve to our own stockpile. So we will click Create Reserve Stockpile. We will give it a name. In this case, it can be the same name as what you use as the other storage facility. And here I am able to access this reserve stockpile. From here, I will click Submit Vehicle, and that will submit my plane into the aircraft depot. If I press E to use the aircraft depot, and I look at my reserve stockpile, in the All Item Crates item here, you will not see it, but you will see it in the Vehicle category here, not the Vehicle Crated category, but the actual vehicle category. Here you will see your scout plane, and you can click it to assemble it. and it will appear inside of the aircraft hangar. From here, you can go up to it, you can get in it, you can press E, and you can submit the vehicle back to your reserve stockpile. Don't do this over and over again, but you get the idea. This is how you reserve and access your planes. Keep in mind that a plane must be fully repaired in order to be submitted into an aircraft depot. At this point, you are free to rinse and repeat this process as many times as you like. You are also able to bring up as many materials as you may like in order to craft as many airplanes as you may like. The next video in this series is going to be how to fly a plane. Just a small addendum to this, if you happen to come across this vehicle, which is an R5 Atlas hauler, you can also find these in those stockpiles where you got your R1 hauler. These vehicles also work for this purposes, with the exception of bringing refined materials to the aircraft hangar. This vehicle can only move component salvage, which is the material that you get from the mines and the component fields. This actually allows you to carry one extra row of components, which will allow you to carry 2,000 components. Yeah, 2,000 components, which turns into 100 refined materials, which is 1.25 planes. So these R5 Atlas haulers are actually more efficient for component gathering. However, you may want to speak with somebody or look up a video on how to use a flatbed, because the flatbed with a resource container can actually contain 5,000 components, which is many planes. So it all depends on the amount of efficiency that you want. At the end of the day, the refinery can only cook your components into refined materials so quickly, so therefore using an R1 hauler is not going to be any faster than an R5 Atlas hauler if all you are looking for is producing planes. One other thing to go over is how to put a vehicle back into storage. What I would recommend that you do is go up to, in this case, the seaport, hop out of your vehicle, make sure that the inventory of the vehicle is empty, and we are also going to change fuel in order to empty the vehicle of fuel. What we can then do is hop back in the vehicle, press E to open the seaport, and submit the vehicle into the public stockpile of which we got it from. In this case, however, our vehicle is muddy because it is raining, so this is a perfect opportunity to show how to deal with that. Oftentimes inside of the seaport inventory, you will be able to find buckets. In this case, I cannot find a bucket. Your other option is, of course, just to leave the vehicle around, as many people do, in order for people to use in the future. However, in this case, I will hop into this fire truck, access the back of it. Oh. Never mind, there's no water in this thing. Okay, I found a water pump to fill up the car, so just give me a second here. Okay, perfect. Now I can finally get in this thing, reload it, and spray my car down, get all the mud off of it. Excellent. And now I can hop into my R1 hauler and open up the public stockpile and submit the vehicle. There we go. Wow, what an ordeal.